fast, so stop me if I talk too quickly. Shirley Hall was a soroptimist, and she is still a soroptimist. And she's not on the call today, but she also has voice problems, so she couldn't really speak at this. But somebody who was actually in her wedding, and she was in her wedding, was the governor of the South Atlantic region in 1986, and said to Shirley, we need to start a club down there. So Ruby Barnes, who was also, I think, a member of the Greensboro Club at the time, Dr. Ruby Barnes, and Shirley got together, and there were several meetings where they invited people who were interested. And, you know, this is before computers and stuff. So a lot of word of mouth, some newspaper articles about the club we were trying to start. And we finally chartered in November 1987 with 22 members. At the time you needed, I think, 18 members to charter a club. We exceeded the number, actually. And this was a group of five of them were IBMers, thanks to Shirley Hall. And all actually came from the same part of IBM that Pat and I and Donna had come from. But then, you know, doctors and lawyers and just an interesting group of women who just wanted to do something to help women and girls. So when we started, you know, we were kind of feeling ourselves out what we were going to do. And we decided the first thing we were going to do was help other people to try and get our name out in the community. So we weren't big enough to have a big project of our own, but we helped. And I'm just going to name a couple of things that we did over the years. We did an Adopt a Highway program. You know, see people out there cleaning up the highway. Well, we did that to get our name on a sign. And actually, it was great fun. We would go and have biscuits beforehand. We'd go out and do that, and it was great fun. And our name got out there. We worked the city of Raleigh on hazardous waste collection programs. We did a gardening project at Habitat. We assisted Wake County Literacy Council to host an international conference in 1992. We did reading and writing contests in low-income neighborhoods. We assisted in the construction of an all-children's playground, the first one in Raleigh for handicapped children in 1990. Organized and staffed the pharmaceutical pantry for Open Door Clinic of the Urban Ministries. We did that from 91 to 96. We manned fundraising booths at the State Fair for the Duke Hospital Children's Miracle Network. Again, that was great fun. And it was one of those places where we got together. So we were there together for a few hours and you get to know each other better. I think those projects are so good for us. We did community Christmas dinners in Robinwood. We did health screenings, and Robinwood is a low-income neighborhood. We did a kids cafe there for almost 2 years where we would help the kids do their homework. We would bring them snacks for after school. We brought in people to do cooking classes for them, to teach them health. We had a health screening day for them out there. We did summer meal programs there for a couple of years. We did a fundraising dinner for the prevention of child abuse with the North Carolina chapter of the National Committee. We did an officer bear project. So when sheriffs or policemen, there's a car accident or they're taking children out of the home because something bad's happened in the home, what they would like to have is bears or some stuffed toys in the trunk so they could give to these children so they would have something to hold on to. So we got those bears collected and get those bears to the sheriffs and the police for several years. We initiated the Christmas Angels program in 2001. So this is our 20th anniversary of that program, actually. And we did I won't find it here now, but we did, when the hurricane came through, there was a neighborhood, a town that needed us badly, and we got funding and sent them money after Hurricane Katrina. We adopted refugees in Rwanda and supported them financially with honorariums for a couple of years, over 4 years. We did Operation Empty Suitcase for Hurricane Katrina victims, evacuees in Raleigh, because they didn't have anything to put. People would give them things, but they didn't have anywhere to put it. So we collected suitcases and got them so that they had something to carry their stuff around in. So this is several years in our making. And then we said, we need to find our own project. We need to find something that's just ours, that not that we would work with other people on, but something that would be ours. So I'm going to turn that over to Pat Lynch to talk about the clothing closet. Pat, you're on mute. Mute. Unmute. I can't hear you.
Oh, I pressed the wrong button. Sorry. So when I joined the club in 2002, one of the things that I learned about was a project that was already underway that was a partnership with probably 4 or 5 other groups, but one of the chief members of that group was from the Raleigh Rescue Mission. A woman named Linda Lutz had something called a computer training partnership, and so she was teaching people how to use computers so that they would be better able to get jobs. And she, along with other groups that were trying to do similar things, prepare people for work so that they could have raise themselves up. They needed things for interviews. And most of the time, they found that those people, they'd do sample interviews, and they were to come dressed the way they would normally go to their interview. And they learned that they didn't have anything that was really suitable for interviews. So they started assembling their own little pools of clothing that they could then give to these people for their interviews. And from that started what we called the SI Raleigh Professional Clothing Closet. Initially, we worked with Interact, the Computer Training Partnership, Wake County Human Services. Linda, you might be able to throw a few others in. But the idea was that we wanted to work with other organizations and other women's organizations in particular. So Linda Lutz had accumulated she had a bonus room over her garage in which she had clotheslines strung, where she kind of kept all this clothing that she had accumulated. And all of these small groups had their own little stashes. So we acquired, I think by renting, a small building down in South Raleigh, Iliagna Street, which was not far from where Robinwood was, where we had these groups with the children. And we got a bunch of people to help us. The Baptist men's groups I know went in. It was not an attractive place. It had many issues, but we fixed it up and started moving clothing there. And there are lots of stories we could tell about that, but so we were there for probably a year or two. And during that time, we probably still had about 5 or 6 main partners. But at one point, we partnered with Hillier Community Church, and they leased to us for no rent, I believe, a place in Maine, the main part of Raleigh, just near Boylan Avenue, Boylan Street.
West Jones Street.
But it was West Jones Street. And it was a little yellow house that had several rooms. It used to be one of the distribution centers for Meals on Wheels. And we went in and we fixed this up, and we worked together to do that. And then we had located a place where we could buy fixtures like you would see in a store. And so we bought all these secondhand fixtures and we loaded them up with clothes. What would happen is that our partners grew to about 22 over time. And my time is running short. At any rate, people would come. We would enjoy helping them pick out outfits. We would treat them like they were in a shop, much like Dress for Success does today. And in fact, that's how we met Lynn Kavsak, is because she used to come and work as a volunteer from Wake Tech with some of those folks. And we just have lots of stories we could tell. But Along came in 2008 a woman named Pat Nathan, who had just started Dress for Success in Durham. And that was the beginning of our turning the clothing closet over to Dress for Success. They were in Durham first, but somebody, I think it was Interact, told them, well, you know, you don't need to start this here. We have this clothing closet with Soroptimist. So she came to see us, and we arranged to share operation for the first year. And then at the end of that year, we turned over all of the clothing, et cetera, to them for it to become the Dress for Success Raleigh branch.
And that was important because Dress for Success had a national standing. So they got a lot of huge donations from large companies in terms of money, in terms of clothing, in terms of briefcases and underwear. You can't imagine how hard it is to find enough undergarments for these people. So
especially
they
large sizes.
Yeah.
We struggle
and
with that.
yeah, and the thing,
bras and scrubs, the whole shebang.
yeah.
Yeah. The one thing I would say is that we had several folks who put a lot of time into this whole project. We had a whole little steering committee for this, but a woman named Sue Hollenbach, who was in the club for a number of years, and others, including Linda, Pat Lynch, I don't know who else, but Pam Sinclair was also the manager of the clothing closet for several of its last years. And you'd be amazed at how much work there is to doing something that like that on your own with only volunteer staff.
Excuse me, we're running low. If we're gonna have Sarita speak.
Yes, I was just going to say
she
that.
doesn't have any minutes, very many, 2.5 minutes. But
Let's
should
give
we
them.
run over?
Let's give them.
Be nice. We'll be nice. Okay.
So
Sounds
Sarita.
good.
Sarita, if you're on mute, unmute.
Okay. So our club got really involved in the aspect of trafficking of humans. It became a really big problem. North Carolina was within the top 10 states that had the most human trafficking, and it was because of the corridors that we have of the I-95 and the I-40. So we did not know this until Pat Witt discovered because she went to the United Nations to a meeting there. She was representing the region. In those days, it was the East, what was it? The North Carolina, well, whatever it was in those days, the region. And so she brought all of that information to Raleigh and got us really excited to be able to grab hold of something like this. And what she did was coordinate, along with Ruth Relos, a series of symposium forums, community forums, and it was at the grassroots level, to make everybody aware that this was a problem, and it was right under our noses, and we never, suspected that it was that bad. But so it brought together 30 very outstanding members of the community, legislators and County Commissioner Betty Lou Ward, and Elaine Marshall. And we had a really successful forum. It was every Soroptimist was able to pitch in and help to make this, organize it, to make it a success. So once they all got together and realized that they did not have the way to handle human trafficking in North Carolina, there were like follow-up forums, follow-up meetings where they got organized and legislation took place. And so we need to be really proud of how far it has come in North Carolina. And it all started with Pat Witt attending that United Nations meeting in New York. We did marches. We did a few marches from Peace College to the Capitol. And it just became a huge part of our club for quite a number of years. But it became so big, out of hand, that it took a life of its own. It was Partners Against Trafficking of Human. That was PATH. And so we need to be very proud of that accomplishment. That's what
we were the co-founders of PATH.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I have.
And let me just say that club history, although it's not current to this day, is in Dropbox. So there's a lot of information in there. I know I just sent it to Betsy to look at, but there's a lot of information in there if you have any interest in our history. But you don't need to know that going forward, because I think we got a great plan to go forward.